you're gonna have to turn. I forgot about this. We are gonna need to. Hmm, how is this gonna work? Can you see if we are live? I think. Oh my goodness. So if okay, this is gonna get super confusing.
My phone is not. There we go. Okay, we are live.
Okay, so let's see if people can actually hear us. And wow, yes. So Jody,
Hello, Jody.
can you hear us? We are in a whole. We're in our office. This is where everything started.
Hi, Lauren. Can you hear us okay?
Yes. No. There's too many things to look at. Oh, there we go. There we go.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like you can hear us. So if you could turn your volume way down,
okay.
because I cannot turn mine down
All right.
because I need to hear Dr. Klaper. Okay.
Oh, we're watching over here.
Yes, we are. Would it help? Let me do this. Watch this. How is that?
That's a lot better.
Yes. So Dr. Clapper is already in the waiting room, which is super fun. I don't know why. I'm kind of nervous, and I don't know why. Hopefully, y'all can hear us. Hopefully, we don't have our normal setup. We're in the office, and the door is even closed for when the dogs go crazy, which you know they will. So listen, do us a favor because we don't want to mess anything up. But if you be so kind, hit share on this because it won't be our blooper reel today. It's actually going to be Dr. Clapper, which I'm super excited about. So we want to hurry up because he's waiting, and I am too, actually.
Hi, Donna and Caitlin and Jean.
Yes. So let's introduce ourselves. Um, hello, hello, hello. We're still going to be bloopering, even though there's no cooking. Hello, I'm Tim Kaufman.
I'm Heather Kaufman.
And we run a page called Fat Man Rants, and together we have lost 290 pounds. But more importantly, we live a healthy, happy, and active life on a whole food, plant-based diet. And the key word there is whole food. Um, and so we come to you guys on Sunday, usually showing off our kitchen follies and screwing things up, but somehow making delicious food out of plants. And we do this because we know what happened to us is out there for anyone. And if we can do it,
you can too.
Yes. So here we go. We are so excited to have another special guest today. And so I would like from you guys, first of all, tell us where you're from. And again, if you give this a share, it'd be super cool because hopefully we get into some really cool stuff. Give us some questions. I have a few.
Hi, Maria.
But if you've ever wanted to ask Dr. Clapper a question, this is the time to do it. So,
hello, Steve and Colleen.
Yes, Steve Cahill. Yeah, so I think we should get this show on the road.
I think we should. Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
So let's see if we cannot screw this up. Hopefully. Dr. Clapper.
Hey.
How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Hi.
Hi.
I know we've bumped into each other multiple times, but this is my wife, Heather.
Hi there, Heather. I cannot see the gentleman. I can just see this part of his face here. You need to move your camera this way or lean in to your right there, sir. Yes, Tim.
Yes. So
yes.
We're probably on a squish. So on my end, everything looks great.
Right.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, and I can see half your face. You're right at the edge of that. Yeah,
that better?
That's better. Yes.
All right. So, oh yeah, you're right. Okay, now we see it. Okay, we have like 3 monitors going here. So.
Right.
Okay, perfect. So I'll have a crooked back by the time this is over with, but that's okay. Steve Cahill, first of all, we're huge fans of yours. You've always been one of my plant-based heroes. Always looked up to you. Actually, we teach a lot of classes, and one of the videos that every single student we teach watches is the one where you talk about giraffe milk and the human growth fluid. I love that, how simple that you make that. Um, but we also are kind of connected through a mutual friend, Steve and Sue Cahill, which are amazing people.
Yes, they are.
So thank you, Steve, for setting this up. So in any event, I would like to try to ask you questions that are not like the normal questions that you get, maybe. Or maybe
I'm game. I got nothing else to do this evening, so sure.
Okay, so the first question that I wanted to ask you, well, first of all, thank you so much again for being here. I
Yes.
really, really appreciate it, taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you for the acknowledgement. It's a joy to be here. Education is the name of the game at this point, and reach as many people as possible with the message. So I'm glad to be here and help. Absolutely.
It is, and actually, maybe I'll switch the question I was going to ask you and ask you the last question first, since you brought it up. How long have you been in the medical field?
47 years, 1972. Mhm.
Yes, which is one of the reasons why I just love your work because you're doing it, you know.
Hmm.
The question I would love to know is if you could change just one thing about the medical industry right now, what would it be?
To complete that circuit in every doctor's head, every nurse, every administrator, that the reason it's the 21st century in North America, the reason why our patients are coming to us overweight, diabetic, hypertensive, clogged up, and inflamed is from what they're eating. It's not genetic. It's not the BPA in the cans. It's what they're running through their tissues every 4 hours with every burger and buffalo wing and pizza. That's the problem, doctor. Focus on that. That's square one. But once you clean that up, these diseases go away. And that's what I've been telling the young med students. These are reversible diseases. They don't have to be diabetic forever. They don't have to be hypertensive forever. These diseases go away. It's from what you're eating and how you're living your life. So I'd like that message to get into the heads of my colleagues. It would empower them and cure their patients.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that would probably be the most effective at the educational level before they even become medical doctors, right?
Absolutely. That's why I've been going to the medical schools, trying to, before pharmacosclerosis sets into their brains, that there's more than just drugs involved. It's the food. Try to start
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I was going to finish this whole thing is to lead into what project you're working on, because I kind of knew what you were going to say to that. And what kind of stuff are you doing right now to push that initiative along?
Right. So thank you, Tim, for asking about this. This is our initiative called Moving Medicine Forward, and it's to yard our colleagues' awareness into the 21st century that, again, these are foodborne diseases that we're seeing. There's no mystery about why people get overweight and diabetic and hypertensive and inflamed. The Western diet is the driving force. It's not all there is to be healthy. You need to get enough sleep and reduce your stress and drink enough water, get outside. Those are all important. But it's what you're running through your tissues every 4 hours of every meal that determines creates a lean, healthy body or one that's all clogged up and diseased. So I've been going around to the medical, and it's important for these young students to know that early in their education. So I've been going to the medical schools and giving them the lectures I wish someone had given me 50 years ago when I was a first year student. And you can see it on my website. Go to drklaper.com. I'm sure there'll be a link, doctorklaper.com. Click on videos and see what I wish I learned in medical school about nutrition. This is the lecture I'm giving the young students, and anyone can see it for themselves. And the students have been very receptive to this. They come up and say, "Thank you. I wish somebody had told us this." And so they say, once you look behind the curtain, you can't pretend you don't know what's behind the curtain. And so I've been trying to tear down the curtain and show the students. So I've been to dozens and dozens of medical schools in North America. I have every intention to continue that. But COVID has left its viral footprint here. And so we have to accommodate to that. But it's a joyous, effective accommodation for us to make because as part of our program, I don't want it to be a one-time drive-by lecture where Dr. Klaper comes in, gives his talk and poof, and then disappears in the breeze. We want the students to establish a nutrition interest group, and let's get online every month. I'll send them a nutrition-based case. Let's talk about why this patient has diabetes or hypertension, whatever. Talk about the medical nutritional aspects of it. And I want medical students and dietetic students to sign on from across the country once a month, and we're going to get this all online and create a community of nutritionally aware physicians and nurses and pharmacists and dentists. And so I'm looking to let this. It's going to force us to expand actually online, and so we're moving our initiative online and. Got a lot of work to do, but it's exciting. I want to reach these young folks. It'll change the face of Western medicine, and that's just what we're trying to do.
That's awesome. And well, thank you for doing that. And I love the idea of making it digital. I mean, there's nothing like a live and in person, but digital is so much more scalable and you can reach so many more people. You had mentioned that the students are pretty receptive. What about the people? What about the
administration and the teachers and all that? Oh, they're not too open to this message, and it's threatening to their model. They said we don't know anything about nutrition. We don't have time to talk about it. We don't get paid for it. This is it's unproven. Never been any studies show that that makes any difference in what your patients are eating. They fall back into this old 1950s way of thought. The truth is, if they take the time to search, the literature is filled with studies now about how plant-based nutrition can reverse these diseases. And fortunately, there's younger faculty members coming on staff now, and we get surgical residents, and we get the young head of rheumatology and orthopedics showing up. There's always a couple of old professors in the back of the room with their arms folded, clucking their tongues, but they're going to get swept away. There's no stopping this tide, this wave. The truth is the truth, and the patient's diet is a major contributor. And it's stunning to me the way Western medicine has configured itself, that we practice medicine like what our patients are eating has no effect on these diseases, when of course it's the underlying cause. And for a science that can identify a genetic mismatch on gene 821 on chromosome 14, boy, we can home in on that with precision. But the thought that cheeseburgers and pepperoni pizzas might be clogging up our patients' arteries, this is too abstruse a kind of concept for my colleagues. That's embarrassing for scientists. But the doctors don't want to open that door. Again, they don't get paid for doing nutritional counseling. They don't know much about it. And they're eating the same stuff themselves in the hospital. They're eating their burgers and their pizzas, et cetera. And they want to tell their patients don't eat that. But then you wind up with doctors with high blood pressure and clogged arteries and pockets full of statins and a big pot belly when they walk in the room. And that's no way to inspire healing in your patients. And so everybody's got to improve, the doctors and their patients. We all have to open to the message of healthy nutrition. And what is it? It's ordering the bean chili instead of the beef chili,
Right.
Such a huge sacrifice, but the food's delicious. And the healing powers are just remarkable to see. Within days of adopting a healthy, whole food, plant-based diet, the obesity starts to melt away and the arteries open up and the high blood pressure comes down and the joints stop hurting and the psoriatic skin clears up and the asthmatic lungs stop wheezing so much and the migraine headaches get better. And they turn into normal, healthy people right in front of your eyes. It's the most exciting transformation in medicine. And I've got a slide in my show, in my presentation, saying, do you want to heal these patients or don't you? I mean, really, why'd you go into medicine? You want to heal them, then get real about what they're eating, because that's why they're sitting in front of you, doctor. But we've been playing nutrition like Harry Potter, the movie, the arch villain Voldemort. Ooh, the name that must not be spoken. Ooh, don't ask about what the patients are eating. We're Americans. We can eat whatever we want. Well, your artery's got something to say about that. Your colon's got something to say about that. Your insulin receptors have something to say about that. and a healthy diet makes the body run healthfully. And I won't monopolize all the time, and I want to ask questions, but it's the message that these students need to hear, and one way or the other, in person or online, we want to get that message into their head while they're still open to new ideas.
That's awesome. And I think that sometime, and I don't know because I'm not in the medical field, but I am, however, in the technology field. So we do a lot with, I teach engineering classes, and biotech is one of the classes that I do a lot with. And it's interesting to me, and maybe for the doctors in the medical field, it might even be a little pride thing because it seems like it's such a simple concept to eat whole food. And we have, when I do my talks, I talk a lot about technology. When my father got his kidney removed, I don't know, 30 years ago, they cut him from his belly button all the way around to his spine. And now, the incision's a couple inches. We're doing remote surgeries to third world countries right here from Buffalo.
Miracles, wonderful.
We actually have nanotechnology that we can actually line cells up to spell things. It's amazing. And then on top of the technology is the money. Billions, over $300 billion a year for chronic illness. Can it be as simple as whole food? But we're throwing technology. We have amazing technology. We're throwing massive amounts of money. We're getting sicker and sicker. And something is, in my opinion, as simple as type 2 diabetes is, stop eating cookies and eat apples. Maybe the medical field is like, that's too simple. That, maybe it's a pride thing too.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's I'm having a T-shirt made up. It's been the food. It's the food. It's been the food all along. And it's like we've been putting diesel fuel in a gasoline burning engine. Well, duh. No wonder it doesn't work well. But you put in the right fuel, and it hums along beautifully. It's a wonderful machine we've been given here.
Yeah. So actually, I have a question I wanted to start with. We're getting a lot of questions here piling up. But so I would hope that the people that are following my page know how important it is to follow a whole food plan, and the more whole it is, the better. But just someone asked me the other day, when you take 20 grams of animal protein and compare that with 20 grams of plant protein, what's the difference in that?
Oh, there's a tremendous difference, and the when you drill down on this level, it becomes like fractals in mathematics. The closer you look, the more it breaks up into smaller and smaller pieces of mechanism. Same thing with when it comes to protein and cellular function. Just in their basic composition, they are different substances. Animal muscle is going to have a lot more amino acids that have an atom of sulfur. There are a lot more cysteine and taurine and cysteine, and this releases sulfur into the bloodstream. That combines with water to create sulfuric acid, and the kidneys have to neutralize that. The bones have to deal with that. So animal protein is a more acidic protein just from all the sulfur it contains. That has all sorts of acid-base implications, but also animal protein is very easily absorbed. Plant protein in a whole bean the protein is thoroughly attached to the fiber of the bean or the corn kernel, and as a result, you chew it up and eat it, but it takes hours for your digestive enzymes to work their way into that piece of ground up, chewed up bean or corn, and the enzymes have to get in, free up the protein from the carbohydrate fiber, and then break up the protein to amino acids. And as a result, the amount of amino acids in the protein in the blood rises very slowly and gently. One pass through the liver is pretty much metabolized. The body has plans for those amino acids. Doesn't cause a big physiologic response compared to animal muscle. Animal muscle and no fiber. That muscle, by the time the stomach acid, the protein digesting enzymes in the stomach and in the pancreas, the small intestine, boy, part way down the small intestine, that animal muscle is dissolved, absorbed. The amount of amino acids in the bloodstream goes up very quickly, and that load of amino acids hits the liver. Well, the liver responds. Like Dr. Greger says, like giving a 8-year-old boy a box full of Tinker Toy parts, he's going to build something with it. And you flood the liver with all those amino acids, oh, it'll do something with it. And it puts out a gush of a hormone called IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. And this stimulates production, growth of tissue in the body. And if you're an 8-year-old boy, that's fine. If you're a 40-year-old guy with a big prostate, early prostate cancer in there, that's the last thing you want is a gush of IGF-1 from a protein load coming in. If you're a woman with a breast lump, that's the last thing you want. These high protein diets stimulate cancer growth, and where plant protein does the opposite. It's a much more gentle protein. And the more you go down into the individual amino acids and what enzyme systems they trigger, et cetera, they're unstabilizing. A flesh-based meal is, we're plant-eating simian creatures here. We're not mountain lions. And these high protein loads cause reactions in the body that are not good. So there's fundamental difference between the animal muscle and plant protein. And we're plant-eating creatures. We've got fingers on our hands, not claws. We got starch-digesting enzymes in our saliva. We're plant-eating creatures like our bonobo and gorilla cousins, and we should honor that.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you for that. So I wanted to stay away from the COVID thing because it's everywhere. But I did want to ask you, these questions actually might have something to do with each other. First of all, the immune system, and I would hope that a lot of people realize already out there that fiber is the key to building that farm of really good gut bacteria to keep you healthy and to bump that immune system. But I've been reading a little bit about fasting and what that does to the immune system. And I actually started looking closely at it. I had some surgery done, and the idea of stem cells came up. So I said, well, instead of getting stem cells, how does our body make these baby stem cells? And everything led back to fasting. So if you could just take a couple minutes, and I don't know if you can relate it to how I wanted to relate them, but I really would like to know about fasting. Most people think to feed your immune system, you got to, fill your guts with food. But how does fasting play into all this?
Oh, remarkable question. So let's have a go at it. If we take our evolutionary clock and turn it back 1 million years back on the African savannah and our foraging band of ancestors there that spent all day mostly foraging for fruits and roots and tubers and edible grasses, when you examine the fossilized feces of these people, you see the massive amounts of fiber they were eating, 150 grams of fiber a day. We were, as I said, digging out roots and tubers and edible grasses, etc. But you could easily imagine, it wasn't uncommon that 4 or 5 days might go by before you found the next berry bush with fruit on it. And these intermittent fasting periods of fasting were the rule, and you just had water if you were lucky until you found the next meal that nature provided. And I think these repetitive episodes of enforced fasting, it kind of imprinted our Homo sapiens body here. We're able, after 48 hours of not taking in any carbohydrate, which is our preferred fuel, the body shifts into burning stored fat. And when it shifts into that gear, remarkable things happen. And the body gets very efficient, turns down its basal metabolism rate, so it's not burning so many calories, like not being at fast idle at the stoplight in the car there. It slows down metabolism, thyroid hormone function goes down. And the body turns off wasteful reactions like inflammation. If you're dying of starvation, the last thing you want to do is waste heat, running inflamed joints. And so And so the body sends out signals to turn off the inflammatory reaction, which we use therapeutically. Fasting is a great way to overcome inflammatory states. The cancer growth, if you're starving to death, running a malignant tumor is a complete waste of calories. So the body sends these remarkable molecules called sirtuins, Sirtuins, out into the cells, and they turn off cancer growth, they shut it down. The stem cells in the bone marrow kind of hunker down into kind of a state of suspended animation. The tissues get very protective and seems to be more resistant to infections. Wound healing may get better. We see that clinically at True North when people came in post-operatively, how well their wounds healed with brief water fasting and a healthy diet. So clearly the immune system is responding to this state of people are in ketosis. These are ketone molecules from burning fat. And again, recreating that ancient time, especially if you got injured by a leopard and you need to heal yourself, you curl under a tree like the animals do and just drink water. Yep. And let your body's immune system, heal the wound, fight infection as best it can. And that still seems to be inherent in us. When we get into this fasting state, our body, the immune system's free to concentrate on the tasks at hand rather than the meal you just ate. Every time you eat a meal, all the food molecules flood into the bloodstream. The gut gets very active. The immune cells lining the gut have to interrogate the proteins, whether they should let them into the bloodstream. Well, on a fast, that's all freed up. And the immune system is free to fight infections, heal wounds, turn down tumors. So fasting can be very beneficial for the immune system over a short period of time. We're talking about a 3-day fast, 5-day fast. We're Americans. If a little is good, more must be better. So if 5 days in ketosis is good, well, how about 3 weeks in ketosis? How about 2 months in ketosis? I'll just stay in ketosis all the time, and the ketogenic diet, is stalking the land. That is, I don't believe, helpful. Ketosis it's an emergency repair state. It's like passing gear on your car. You're driving on the freeway, you got to pass a truck, you pull out left lane, hit the gas, and you pass the truck. Wonderful. Passing gear is great, but you don't want to drive to Seattle in passing gear. You'll burn out your engine, and unless you're in Seattle. But anyway, you don't want to drive in it. And the same thing with ketosis. It's an emergency repair state, but you don't want to live in ketosis.
Right.
So it's nice to be able to do these 3-day fast, 5-day fast. They can be helpful. Even that morning fast, just to put off breakfast until noontime. Just you're in a fasting state all night. Well, we're finding just keeping that fasting state going all morning to get an extra 3, 4, 5 hours of that fasting state. Even that does good things before you have your first plant-based meal. So fasting is good used appropriately.
Right.
So it's a tool, but it's the food you eat.
Yeah, honestly, I stay away from the fasting thing whenever I do a talk because people get it confused. Like, you're not fasting to lose weight. And when you talk about ketosis, it's a good thing in the short term, but you're not driving it with bacon and ham and
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, we're talking about water, or vegetable broth or green juices.
Right.
And you're absolutely right in your comments.
Yeah, so sometimes to avoid confusion, I kind of avoid the subject altogether, but I was curious about it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So there's been a few pretty neat questions. One question I forgot offhand who asked it, but they said, can you talk about the difference between being 80% plant-based and going full on 100%? How
much heroin can you use before you become addicted? How much methadone can you smoke? Less is more. The body's never not looking. You know, you can't tell your body, look over here and have a cheeseburger there. You know, what happened? Yeah, your body knows. Who are you kidding? Your arteries know, your liver knows, and your gut microbiome knows. Um, you know, it's true, I suppose, that you know, a small amount of meat once a week, you're probably not going to hurt people. But don't think that your microbiome is a little different for having a piece of meat than if you hadn't had that piece of meat. Everything makes a difference. So how much can you get away with? Is the issue, and less is more, and none is best, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, I love that, that none is best. And I will piggyback on it and say for most people, so me being a food addict, I didn't get to 400 pounds without like rationalizing what I was eating. So when you say a small amount, that's very subjective. And I can tell you that 10 years ago, a small amount of chicken wings would have been 40 instead of the whole 50. So
Thank you. Yes, thank you. We're talking about the size of a deck of playing cards, a small amount, once a week. You know, if you're
right,
going to be eating meat, hold it about that. But all meat is tainted these days. The
right,
fish is full of mercury and
yeah,
pesticides and full of hormones and all this. Why do you even want to eat it any longer at this point?
yeah. It's like Dr. Greger says. So instead of taking your whole foot, we'll just remove the big toe.
Yeah, well, it's a minor amputation, there's moderate amputation,
Yeah,
the moderate diabetes, right?
right.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Can you?
Someone asked, what was your motivation when you started?
When I started what?
Sorry, wait 1 second here. Let me pull the rest of it up. Is this? Okay, I'm sorry. This is someone replying to someone else. I thought it was for you. Sorry about that.
Okay.
That's an interesting question. Can I just that
Sure.
actually gave me an idea.
Okay.
When you started practicing medicine, were you always plant based?
Oh no. I
So
was
can you
just,
tell us how did that transition happen?
oh well. No, I grew up I spent my winters in Chicago going to school and my summers on my uncle's dairy farm in Wisconsin. And no, I grew up eating meat. I chopped the heads off chickens on the farm there. I had, I was asleep like everybody else who eats that stuff is. And went to medical school and graduated and practiced regular blood and guts medicine for the first 9 years, emergency rooms, operating rooms. But two things happened in 1981 that just made it untenable to do anything else except go plant-based. Yeah, I was at that time I was working as a resident in anesthesiology in the operating rooms in Vancouver, and I'm on the cardiovascular anesthesia service. I'm dealing with people's hearts and blood vessels. And day after day, I'm putting people to sleep and watching surgeons open their chest and open their arteries in their heart. And out of these arteries are pulling this yellow, greasy gut called atherosclerosis. And I knew very well what that stuff was. There was already articles in the medical journals having to do with saturated fat and cholesterol, and it's essentially the fat of the animals that these people are eating. There's already articles on people reversing this disease with a plant-based diet. And one day I'm watching the surgeon pull a particularly rubbery piece of fatty material out of the arteries. And I'm thinking to myself, man, that stuff looked like chicken fat. And the little voice on my shoulder said, it's a good reason why it looks like chicken fat, doctor. It is chicken fat and cow fat and pig fat and the fat of the animals this man was eating. If you do radioactive studies, you can see the fat that people are eating winding up in these plaques. And my dad died of clogged arteries. He was already showing signs of artery disease. And I knew I was going to wind up on that operating table with that striker saw going up my chest. And the message was saying to change your diet before you become a patient. And at the same time, my personal growth, I spent a lot of time in the trauma unit at Cook County Hospital in Chicago. I saw what the worst of what humans do to each other. And I had vowed to the greatest extent possible that if I couldn't cure the violence in the whole world, at least get it out of my own life. And I really was making a serious pursuit of living a life of nonviolence, concepts called ahimsa. And I really wanted to be a man who goes through this life peacefully. And so I was reading the life of Gandhi and the Indian saints and learning about this. So one night in Vancouver, I'm out for dinner with another resident in anesthesia, and I'm pontificating about living a life of nonviolence. Well, I'm polishing off a porterhouse steak at the local keg and cleaver. And John looks at me with great compassion and says, yeah, that's all well and good, Michael, but if you want to get the violence out of your life, you might want to start with that piece of meat on your plate, because in satisfying your desire for that piece of flesh in your mouth, you are paying for the death of the animal and for the next one in line at the slaughterhouse. Well, as soon as he said that, all defenses jumped in my head. Well, the animal's dead already, and that's what they raised them for, and all the rationalizations. But before the words could come out of my lips, that same little voice said, he's right. He's right.
Yeah.
And when I went up to pay for the meal, I felt complicit in a crime. Because I grew up on the farm. I saw the old dairy cow shot in the head. I chopped the heads off chickens. I know the violence it takes to get all meat on the table. Who am I kidding? And he called me on it. And between what I was seeing in the operating room and what I knew in my heart in the restaurant that night, okay, the jig's up. It's time to stop eating animals. And I did. Well, my body loved it. Boy, within 12 weeks, a 20-pound spare tire of fat melted off my waist. My high blood pressure went to normal. My high cholesterol came down. I felt great waking up in a nice, lean body. And at that point, I realized I didn't want to be an anesthesiologist and spend my career putting people to sleep. I'd rather go back to general practice and help them wake up. And so I did. And I left anesthesia. It was 6 months ago with my residency, much to my parents' dismay. I went back to general practice, started doing nutritional medicine, and I've been doing it ever since 37 years ago now. And so
I have goosebumps right now.
yeah, so that's how I wound up and doing what I'm doing.
Oh, that's so cool. That's such a cool story.
Mm.
Wow. Actually, that kind of it very vaguely leads into another question. I forgot the name, but someone wanted to know about mental health in the plant-based diet. She's actually a local doctor that comes to our plant-based cafe. Super cool. So I know there's like the kind of common sense thing. You feel better when you're not, like you just implied about killing animals. And I know there's definitely some help, but she's actually looking for some specific research or some kind of tools or resources.
Yes, well, as you say, one certainly has an easier head on the pillow knowing that I haven't contributed to the death of these wonderful animals. And as we're speaking tonight, there's these anonymous sheds scattered out in the hillsides across America where hundreds of millions of pigs and cows and chickens are in misery tonight. They're lonely and they're scared and in these hellacious conditions. And we're paying for that. And it's not a small matter to not support that any longer. And especially these viruses are jumping out of these animal confinement operations. And this one came from a bat butchered in Wuhan, China, but there's probably another one being brewed up in some U.S. pig farm tonight that's going to be much more lethal than COVID-19. And it's going to have a made in America stamp on it. And every time we buy that cheese and buy the bacon and order the chicken in the restaurant, we're paying for this to keep this thing going. It's time for this to stop. This COVID infection is a Western Union telegram from the animals saying, we are not your food. Stop already. You are plant-eating creatures. Stop this industrial atrocity that you're doing. They want to get into that right now, but that's one truth of it.
Actually, I want to get back to the question, but you just made me think. I watched a video the other day where a guy was saying, think about what they're telling us to do as humans to protect us from the virus. Keep your distance, stay apart, don't be stressed out. It's the complete opposite of what we're doing in these factory farms. So what do you think is going to happen?
Right? Absolutely. So the original question was about
Tools and resources for mental health and the
oh,
plant.
right, mental health, yes. So, as I said, you have an easier conscience not contributing to that atrocity, but on a medical physiologic level, we're finding that it's clearly established now the food we eat determines the microbes that live in our gut, determines our microbiome that we carry in our colon. Well, the trillions of bacteria and yeast down there, they are not passive bystanders. These organisms are actively metabolizing our food sources, and their byproducts are molecules like norepinephrine and dopamine and gabapentin, and these are neurotransmitters that these organisms put out. They get into our bloodstream, they wrap the vagus nerve, they get into our brain, and they change us. They change our perceptions, they change our cravings, our emotional state. It's long been observed that people, when they change to a healthy, whole food, plant-based diet, they'll casually mention, I'm happier, I feel better. Well, we're seeing that this is not a placebo effect. You change your microbes and they are sending different messages up to your brain. And the mirror image of that, we see the autistic kids. Their microbiome is so deranged. They have such aberrant microbes in their gut. And it's been observed, I'm not advocating it, that when you give autistic kids antibiotics, they get better, they get clearer. You clearly have altered their microbiome, which has changed their brain chemistry. So, I mean, the gut brain axis is a real hot channel. They are directly in contact with each other. So for that reason alone, we don't have to get down to specific mechanisms, specific foods, but it's as Dr. Colin Campbell in his book Whole is saying, it's don't worry about how much serotonin you produce and how much the dopamine. It's the whole food stream. It's all the fiber and the phytonutrients and the plant-based proteins and the omega-3 fats. It's the entire food stream, and that's moving through your gut and moving through your tissues. It's the chemical message that's being given to your gut wall, to your immune system, that if it's a whole food plant-based diet, the message is, this is the right fuel. It's not stirring up inflammation. It's not fostering cancer growth. It's the food we're meant to eat. But when you put fried animal muscle and hydrogenated oils and refined sugars and high fructose corn syrup and all the colorings and flavoring preservatives, that toxic brew, that summons up an entire different set of microbes. And no wonder that when people get depressed and anxious, there's often events and problems behind that. But one issue is what these people been eating. Right. And because if they're living on fast foods and processed foods and meats, etc., well, what kind of microbes you're cooking up in your gut there? Maybe that's a place to start looking, because it's easy to change. Beans and greens and fruits and veggies do wonderful things in the gut and in the brain as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the most simple, I just had this conversation last week with someone, the most simple way to kind of prove that this communication between the gut and the brain is just like stress, like before you go, even now, like going live, I get the butterflies in my stomach. Well, that has nothing to do with, that's totally from my head to my stomach. And a lot of the football players and stuff, they'll actually get sick enough to vomit before a game. So there's definitely connection. And it seems like the more I read about gut health, the more vast it's you could spend the rest of your life just
and many of my colleagues are doing just that. Spend their whole career studies. Who knew? Who thought? We carry it around all the time and hidden in plain sight. Right.
It's like a whole universe, really.
It is cool. Exciting.
Yes. Do you have any I don't want to keep you too long.
Oh no, I'm enjoying it. No, I got time. Another half hour.
There's so many of recently. Okay, so John said he recently had a calcium CAT scan, and he had a total score of 50. He's 62 years old. I've been mostly plant-based for 10 years. how bad is the score of the 50 on its calcium cancer?
Right. It's not terrible, but we need to put this in context here. We get so fixated on these numbers, what your cholesterol, what your particle size, what's the ratio, the numbers, and if your number is too high, whatever, then that earns you a prescription for statins and Plavix, et cetera, et cetera. The tyranny of the numbers, I call it. I invite people to go to my website, drklaper.com, doctorklaper.com, click on videos there, and there's a free video called Beyond Cholesterol. And in this video, I make it clear that the process we're scared of, the atherosclerotic plaque building up in the arteries and causing heart attacks and stroke, this is not, it's not a passive event, and this doesn't happen because your LDL is too high. This is an inflammatory reaction. These arteries are being injured. This is an active biological process. There's an inflammatory fire burning in the walls of the artery, fanned by meal after meal of fried animal protein and hydrogenated oils and phosphoric acid and cola drinks and high fructose corn syrup and all the emulsifiers, all the polysorbate 80s that dissolve the bonds between between cells that line the artery wall. Modern diet is an assault on that fragile inner endothelial lining of our arteries. Plus, if you add in cigarette smoke and stress hormones, this delicate lining gets ripped up. Oxidized cholesterol that gets created when you cook the meat, those oxidized cholesterol particles work their way into the wall of the arteries, set off this inflammatory reaction, and the body responds by building this plaque. This is an active biological process that results from the owner of the arteries abusing their arteries. If you're driving a car and you're too fast and you're screeching your tire, wear those tires down. It's just from the exceeding the limits of the mechanisms that can tolerate it. This is not a random event. This is artery abuse, way beyond how high is your LDL. The question is, are these arteries inflamed or not? I've got vegans walking around with cholesterols of 210, 220. It's not a disease. The cholesterol is not an evil molecule. Your liver makes it, so your adrenal glands can make cortisol from it, and your genitals can make testosterone or estrogens from it. That's why we make it. And the body stores essential fatty acids on cholesterol molecules. And so the liver may pump out a little extra to store your fatty acids in it. So you get a hypercholesterolemia on the blood test, but that does not equal the inflammatory fire disease of atherosclerosis in your arteries. What you want to measure are the inflammatory markers. So you want to measure high sensitivity CRP, myeloperoxidase, phospholipase. Check the inflammatory markers. Check your oxidized cholesterol. If you're eating rice and beans and greens and fruits and vegetables, those inflammatory markers should be cold, negative. And if that's the case, I don't care that your cholesterol is 210. I go into it in the video. So the calcium score that this man's asking about, when the body's got this long-term inflammatory fire, the body will pack calcium into these plaques to stabilize it and kind of petrify the process and put the fire out. And so the calcium score is evidence of the battle in the past. It says that fire was burning in your arteries. It's not right now. So those plaques don't really pose any great immediate threat to anybody. It just says, yeah, a few years ago, you had that fire burning in your arteries. The question is, what are you eating now? As long as come on in. You need to come in? No. Okay. The question is, what's flowing through the arteries meal after meal? If it's rice and greens and fruits and vegetables, your total calcium score is a rear view mirror look into what was happening years ago in your arteries. Have your doctors check the inflammatory markers. Every lab is now offering them. And that is where to focus your concern about. If they're elevated, then get on the healthy eating bandwagon, and those numbers will take care of themselves. Again, go to my website, see Beyond Cholesterol. I go into all of this.
And I will definitely post a link to that. I think that's so, like, that's kind of like that comes up so much when people get worried about stuff. Like, let's take care of eating 100% whole food, plant-based. That's what we can do.
Exactly.
And everything else. And because I'm even seeing like a lot of questions about weight loss and stuff. And I feel like all these things are side effects.
They take care of themselves. Yeah.
They will. So I think we should end with a question from our mutual friend, Steve Cahill. And he would like advice on kidney stones. And the question kind of is gone already. But
spinach and oxalates and spinach and chard and
yes, because actually I've gotten this question on multiple times and I have no clue how to answer, because someone will say I can't go plant-based because I have kidney stones. I'm sure that's not what Steve is referring to, but can you talk about that?
Is that green vegetables with warfarin with blood thinners, or are we talking about kidney stones and food here? Which one?
So Steve just says vegan with kidney stones.
Vegan with kidney stones, yes. We get into the thicket of urology here. The question is, I got to talk like a regular Western doctor here. What are the kidney stones made of? If they're uric acid from the patient's gout, and by the way, vegans who eat too much sugar, especially the baked goods, if you're eating the vegan cupcakes and sugary stuff, that will raise your uric acid, will set you up for gout, and that can give you uric acid kidney stones. Then that's the whole lesson in itself there. So all kidney stones are not created equal. So uric acid stone, especially if you're vegan. If you're not vegan, stop the meat, because that's where most of it's coming from. But if you are vegan, it's the sugary baked goods and stuff that's and the juices and all that. Stop all that stuff. Eat whole plant foods. But if this is oxalic acid stones, there's a molecule called oxalate that's very high in spinach and its relatives like chard and beets. And so a person, if they analyze the stone and it's full of oxalates, it turns out, don't be eating beets and chard. It turns out that the amount of oxalates you eat apparently don't raise your oxalate that much, but if you've had a couple of bad oxalate stones, you don't want to even raise it that much. So here's a person who should eat the non-oxalate containing greens and focus on the cruciferous vegetables, the broccoli and kale and asparagus, and the non-cruciferous asparagus, romaine lettuce. Get your dark greens, but choose the ones that don't have a lot of oxalate in it. Dr. Greger's got some beautiful videos on this. I'd recommend people go to nutritionfacts.org and click on oxalates and kidney stones. And he's got some lovely videos that goes into this.
Right. Okay. I think that was great.
Okay. Oh, and drink enough water. The stones form when you don't drink enough water. The minerals get real concentrated and they're more likely to precipitate out in the urine forming stones. So keep that. Another good reason to have at least 4 big glasses of water every day over the course of your day, 16-ounce glasses. So stay well hydrated.
Nice.
Okay.
Dr. Klaper, I cannot thank you enough.
Same here.
Hopefully we had some different questions than the same old.
Yes, I enjoyed it. Very good. I was waiting for the 5G question and the COVID there,
and I love your new cat. I just saw you got a new cat or new kitten.
Indeed, yes. You probably heard of. My wife was fostering four little kitties. They got a little active there, and we're trying to find homes for them. And,
I could tell it was like down around your feet or something.
Yes, they were. Absolutely. It was very perceptive. Yes. So great. Thank you for getting this information out. And hopefully we've helped a few folks tonight. And I'd love to come back.
Thank you
And
for everything.
give us your website one more time.
Okay, it's drklaper.com, DOCTORKLAPER, 1P in Clapper. And if you want to know what we're doing with the medical schools, click on Moving Medicine Forward, and you'll see what we're doing and how you can help. We could use all the support we can get. And there's places to arrange some of the consultation requests, things like that as well. And lots of articles and videos, etc. So I invite people to come on by.
So there's a ton of resources. There's a place to donate, and then there's probably also a place to set up
Consultation calls. Yes,
okay.
You can do
Perfect.
that too.
Perfect.
Okay. All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're
have
so
a
welcome.
great night.
Take care.
Thank you, and same to you, and best to all your viewers. Thank you so much. Let's do this again.
We will.
All right.
Okay. All right. Take care. Bye bye, everyone.